Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin, ashraf anbiya wa Sayyidina mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. In the book Mukhtar Al-hadith, Select Prophetic Traditions by Al-Habib Umar bin Hafiz, we are now, alhamdulillah, on the hadith 29. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم زينوا القرآن بأصواتكم رواه أبو داود. The Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, said, beautify the Quran with your voices. This is related in Abu Dawud, and the actual narrator of this hadith is Al-Bara bin Azib. He's the narrator. He belonged to the tribe of Aus. Due to his tender age, he and Abdullah bin Umar were turned away from participating in the Battle of Badr. However, subsequently, he participated in 15 battle campaigns alongside the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. During his lifetime, the city known as Arai in Persia was conquered. Towards the end of his life, he took up residency in Kufa, where he passed away during the leadership of Mus'ab bin Zubayr in the year 72 after Hijrah. So this hadith talks about how we should recite the Quran with our beautiful voices. And there is another narration that talks about beautify your voices with the Quran. So how do you make our voices beautiful? By reciting Quran. And when we recite Quran, we should make our voices beautiful. And this is important to do, but in a way that aligns with the manners and etiquettes of reciting the Quran, being in wudu, inshallah also having some of the etiquettes of facing the Qibla and sitting down and reading the Quran or standing in prayer and honoring and respecting the book of Allah Azza wa Jal and His words. And it's also important to note that we adhere to the rulings of tajweed, the proper way of reciting the Quran according to the science of tajweed itself. And that is something where we need to have knowledge, because if we don't have knowledge of how we're supposed to recite it and we just use our beautiful voices, then we may be doing something or reciting it in a way that's incorrect or invalid, and can even break our salat in some cases or invalidate our salat. And so there's some stories here that the scholars mention. For example, there was a man who had a nice voice, mashallah, and he was leading the prayer. He was even a Hafiz. But as we know, the person who leads the prayer is the one who has the afqa, the aqra, and then the awra. The one who has the most knowledge of fiqh, jurisprudence, and wudu, and salat. So if there's a mistake or something occurs, they know what to do. And also it is the one who knows the most about the Quran, specifically its rulings, how to recite it correctly, and has memorized the most. And then third is the one who's the most scrupulous. The most scrupulous person then would lead. If all the first two are both the same, then the one who's most scrupulous would be the leader of the prayer. And this person was leading because, mashallah, people liked how he recited the Quran. But he never studied with a teacher. He didn't have the fiqh of salat or wudu. And so one time a mufti came in and prayed behind him. And after the prayer, he said, mashallah, you recite with a very beautiful voice. And mashallah, a lot of people pray behind you and like this. And he said, oh yeah, thank you, jazakallah khair. Just imagine if I had wudu. Right? Like, he didn't even have wudu himself, or knew that he had to have wudu, even though he was leading the people, which invalidates his prayer, of course, and those behind him. So it would be a problem, right? Like, for example, our teachers told us some real life stories where, for example, people would recite the Quran without having knowledge of tajweed, and even if they had nice voices. And one time somebody was reading Yasin. And so you're supposed to say what? Yasin. It's 2 count, then 7 count. And the person obviously didn't know that, and so they just read it, yes. And the sheikh goes, no. Even though he didn't speak much English, he was saying that that's not how you recite it, right? Just like there was somebody who came in saying, I'm a PhD, I'm a medical doctor. That's great, mashallah, wonderful. But just because you're a medical doctor doesn't mean you know all the rulings of Islam and tajweed and this and that. And so he says, unless of course you studied, he says in Surah Al-Maryam, which is supposed to be what? Kaf, ha, ya, ayn, sad. He says, kahayas, kahayas. It's like, you're not supposed to read them continuously. It's supposed to be individual letters that you're supposed to read. So having that knowledge is important. And otherwise, like I said, it could be problematic in our prayers. And it is important that we pronounce the letters and the verses correctly. For example, not every letter in the Quran every letter is a za, right? So there's only one za in the alphabet, in the Arabic alphabet. There's a ba, there's a tha, there's a ba, and there's a za, but not all those are za. So one time somebody read Iza zulzilatul arzu zilzalaha, right? There's only one za that is used in that verse, right? Iza zulzilatil ardu zilzalaha, not Iza zulzilatil arzu zilzalaha. So making sure that we pronounce it correctly, we recite correctly, and beautify our voices with Quran, and so that our prayer is valid, our Fatiha is valid, our Quran recitation is valid, so we can maximize reward. May Allah make us of those who beautify our voices with the Quran and beautify the Quran with our voices. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.